Hello again. Let's go ahead and get started. We still have some folks joining us, but we want to stay as much on time as possible. So we'll invite them in as they join, but we want to move forward with the presentation. My name is Beth Simos, and I am the Vice President of Marketing at WayForth, and we are excited to welcome you to the first webinar in our summer series, Managing Life's Transitions. We are very excited about the presentation and our fantastic presenter today, and we are in for a great experience. But before we begin, let's take care of just a little bit of housekeeping about the Teams platform that we are using today. For anyone that's unfamiliar with this webinar format, there are a few features that might be helpful for you. Please understand we have muted everyone just to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to hear the presentation and take away the valuable benefits and insights from the presentation. That also eliminates any unplanned or unnecessary disruptions that may occur. That means we won't be able to hear you talk or ask questions. So please use the chat feature in the platform and feel free to ask questions throughout the presentations, and we'll address those at the end of the presentation. We've set aside plenty of time to address Q&A at that point. Our marketing team is going to be monitoring that chat throughout. So just anything that you think of, you have a question about, insert it into the chat. And if you have any technology issues, please go ahead and put those in the chat as well. And we'll do the best to address those for you as soon as possible. So let's practice using the chat function. So if everyone would write in the chat function where you're joining us from today. City, state, just to give us a sense of who's here. I see Utah, Richmond, Virginia, Plantation, Florida, Durham, North Carolina. We're covering a lot of it all over the United States, from the Northeast to the Southwest, Mystic, Connecticut, California. Fantastic. Welcome, everyone, and we really do appreciate you joining the presentation today. And I want to take just a couple of minutes to share a few words about WayForth, and then we'll jump right into the presentation. We are a provider of comprehensive and personalized move management and moving solutions for life and business. We are one of the nation's largest home transition management companies, and we provide solutions through every phase of the move. And, you know, we understand how you move matters, and no matter the destination, we are here to serve as a guide, helping you make those life transitions easier to navigate. We currently provide services from Maine to Florida and can coordinate moves with partners across the country. Our leadership team here has over 80 years of combined industry experience, and we are an AARP member benefit provider. We are also COVID-19 certified and have implemented some of the most comprehensive health and safety protocols in the industry. We are changing the way people move, and we are hopeful to be able to help you in any way possible with your next move or life transition so that you can experience the WayForth difference. And as you can see here on the screen in the next slide, we cover a variety of solutions, from complete move solutions to home sale management to content management. We are here to offer services personalized for your unique situation and needs. So without further ado, let's go on to the next slide, and I'll introduce you to our fantastic speaker, Pete Shrock. He is co-founder of WayForth and our Chief People Officer. He comes to us with a very in-depth social work background, and has 23 years in grief, loss, trauma, and transitions experience. And also social emotional coach for adults and aging adults. He is very experienced, as you can see from his background, and I invite you to sit back and listen to his presentation and share his expertise.
Thank you, Beth. Good afternoon, everyone. And I think maybe still good morning in a couple spots that were named in the chat so far. But welcome, everyone. And I hope to spend the next, 25 minutes, 30 minutes kind of working and talking around the transitions in life that we go through and how do we manage them. And part of that management of life transition is just kind of the naming, the norming of that, and understanding what does transition mean. There's plenty of tangible things that occur, but there's also the intangible in that, right? And so there's going to be great information today, and I'm looking forward to kind of walking through that with you. First things first, I am going to take you on a little bit of a tour on this roller coaster for a second. And the reason I used a roller coaster is because, when we think about managing life transitions, it can often feel like we're on an emotional roller coaster. Now, take aside any just regular or abnormal life transition that we go through, and we're going to name those in a second, but life in general, we have the ups and the downs that we go through, right? The ups being kind of elation and pure happiness. We can smell the fresh air up there. And the lower parts of the roller coaster really representing sadness, isolation, or loneliness. But there's an array of emotion that happens throughout that. When we talk about managing life transitions, there's all types of life transitions that occur. And I'm going to name a couple of them and just kind of set the stage here. Life transitions, particularly in adults, we're talking about, death, divorce. We talk about financial disruptions. We talk about health disruption. But we don't always associate moving in that. And one of the things I want to really talk about in the physical move is that, moving in as we age, moving is one of the third most difficult life transitions. It's actually been diagnosed as that in the early 90s. And there's a social readjustment scale for adults that kind of talks about the stressors in life. And moving is only eclipsed by the death of a spouse or the divorce from a partner. And so really what we're talking about is that, this emotional roller coaster that we go on, it's only exacerbated by these life events. And so, we're subject to an array of emotions in life in general. So when we add the fact that we're moving later in life and moving from a life that we've acquired and we've built to be our norm, that there's a lot of emotions that we experience in that transition. And there's extremely important emotions from, again, excitement to sadness. And another thing to mention in this is that there's a lot of reasons in which we move, right? And why that transition can be difficult. Not all moves are planned moves. And even in a planned move, we are going to experience an array of emotions. And that's because a move, is very similar to another loss. And we talk about loss and grief in relationship to a move because in order to move, we have to look at physical items and memories from our past and the home that we're living in. We have to deal with the current logistics of the present, the reality that we are moving. And then we have to visualize and try to imagine what the future will look like. So in any event that is occurring, we're experiencing an array of emotions that are going to take us kind of on this wild ride. The other reason I use a roller coaster as an analogy for managing life transitions, and mind you, I realize that being on a roller coaster probably doesn't feel like you're actually managing something as much as just along for the ride. But quite often what happens is as we're on that roller coaster and experiencing our own move, our own transition, we're going through all these emotions. But we often have people around us that are on that ride with us that are experiencing the ride different than we are. And in a transition or a move, family members might be excited for us. They might be overjoyed that we're taking this next step, that we're moving or moving on to a new adventure, but that might not be the feeling that we have in that moment. So we can all be, in the same transition in life, but experiencing it very differently. And that's because we have this view of the past, this disruption of the present, and this uncertainty about the future. And so moving can have an array of emotions for all of us in different ways. And even those that really want to support us could be coming to us and saying, aren't you so excited about this move? I just really want this move to happen for you. It's going to be great for you. And really, we're sitting there thinking about all the things that has to happen or all the things that we're leaving behind. So in the emotional roller coaster of a move, what I want to first say is it's okay to not be okay with it. Not to sit in the low of the low, but to move through that low and look forward to the next high. Because very much like a roller coaster, it's not all downhill. Some of it's the uphill climb, and some of it's the great view, and some of it's the excitement of it too. And so we're going to talk about these emotions and what it means to move through these emotions today. One of the emotions that we can feel is a sense of relocation stress, a tremendous amount of stress about what's occurring. Now, one term for this is transition trauma. It's also known as relocation stress syndrome. It's associated with adults that are getting ready to move, and they're moving in from their private residence into a senior living or long-term care or CCRC. Now, the reality of this is that, we're uprooting ourselves in a lot of ways from our identity, the possessions that we have in our house, the sense of control that we've created in our environment and where we live today. And we're moving away from things that are familiar. So when we think about, moving away from that familiarity and moving forward without that, it creates an acute stress. Now, an acute stress is just all the stress that we can feel in a short period of time. And so when we move through these transitions, and very much like moving, and the physical move of moving, we're sitting in one moment and trying to figure out how to make all of that work for us. How do I get out of all the feelings of feeling like I'm losing my identity and who I am, the possessions that I've collected along my lifetime, and how do I make the decisions that I need to in order to feel less stress about the moment I'm in? And not many people know about relocation stress syndrome, but this is a true syndrome that, won't stay with someone necessarily forever, but the acute amount of time that happens when we are deciding to move from our residence now and move into a new community, there's this adaptation that has to happen, this letting go. And if we don't realize that this is something that we're going to experience, if we don't fully address that along the way, we start to collect an overwhelming sense of emotion. Now, the challenge with that and collecting that over sense of emotion is that when unaddressed, when we don't recognize the emotion, talk about what we're experiencing, talk about the fatigue of that emotion, we get into situations that are not advantageous for us. So they continue to exacerbate the lower part of that roller coaster. And that's feelings of helplessness, feelings of indecisions, feelings of regret or fear. And fear being a real one. I have to leave what I know to be true today for something that's unknown tomorrow. And that transition alone, let alone with all the logistics and the actual logistical decisions we have to make about moving, about what we're going to let go, what we're going to keep, what we're going to give to someone else. Just the emotion of letting go can be overwhelming. So it's really important that as we think about moving through a transition, a life transition, and particularly moving, that we recognize the emotions that we're feeling so they don't continue to be acute. Because stress unaddressed long term, it tends to deteriorate our ability to make decisions. It deteriorates our happiness. Now, what's the challenge with that is that when we feel fatigued by our emotions, that exhaustion starts to set in and affects our decision making. And our decision making is really critical to feeling like that we're kind of in charge of the roller coaster, not just it happening to us. So we don't want to be in a situation where we start to overthink our ideas or our fears. And a lot of times when we don't address the way that we're feeling, those threads of thought can become very negative, and they start to cause us to freeze, really. And in that freezing, we then start to kind of bargain with ourselves and tell ourselves different truths. We start to do trade-offs on things. We start to avoid decisions. And we know that transitions are going to occur. In some situations, there's a cause for why we're having to move. It's not just a planned move. So if there's a health diagnosis, if there's a loss of a partner, if there's a relocation closer to family later in life, those are reasons in why we have to move. And so if we avoid the decisions that allow us to be a part of that process, then the process starts to consume us. The process starts to feel like it's directing our life, and then it's happening to us. So decision fatigue is a direct result of not dealing with some of the emotional decisions that have to occur. And when we don't distinguish between the emotional decisions and the tangible decisions we have to make around the items, the location, where we're going to move to, that starts to feel like an uprooting in our life. And that uprooting can long term create disastrous outcomes for us. So that's where we end up in this feeling of overwhelmed sadness, right? And each person's going to react to a move differently. Some people that will be in charge of their move, excited about it, or pushing forward. Others will be in a situation where there's so many things going on that the move feels as though it's kind of taking control of their life. And that's when that depression or that sadness starts to sit in. Now, look, relocation depression is a real thing. It doesn't mean that it's if you feel it once that you'll feel it forever, but that sense of overwhelmingness starts to set in. There's signs for that, right? And that could be just exhaustion, just the desire, and we talked about this, avoiding decisions, avoiding things that we have to do, and maybe sleeping and just feeling tired for no reason, or not being able to sleep at all. We lay down and we just think about all the things that are happening around us, and we have this state of being overwhelmed. There's another thing that happens that we have a lack of interest in things that we used to enjoy, right? And again, that comes as a symptom of being overwhelmed and consumed by what's happening right now, to where we can't look ahead. We're just kind of gripping that bar on the roller coaster and trying to get through. And so acknowledging emotions throughout this entire process is really important because it gives us a sense of direction. It gives us a sense of understanding who we are, what we're experiencing. And when we understand what we're experiencing and we can put a name to it and we can define it and we can talk about it, we inevitably invite other people that are around us that care about us to be a part of the solution with us and to be a part of the decision-making process. If you are moving, if this is a transition at this point in your life, later in life, there's big decisions that have to be made. So avoiding that doesn't delay anything other than your ability to be happy, your ability to find joy. Now, yes, you have to work through some of the scary parts of that, some of the fear-laden parts of that, but not making decisions and avoiding those decisions and avoiding the ability to invite other people to help you with that, whether that be outside resources, family members, friends, neighbors. If they don't know, then they can't help, they can't assist. And you're going to be stuck in a state of continued, wish I would have, if I would have done this, if I could have done this, it would have changed that. And it keeps you from being able to find that joy that keeps you happy and keeps you going. And that's a huge part of being able to direct your own transition. Now, look, transitions are really difficult, and they're difficult for a reason, right? We spend our entire life, if we're lucky, creating a sense of comfort around us, right? And that comfort is not, we don't set out necessarily to say, I want a life of comfort. What we do is we set out and we build family, we build community, we build routine consistency. And that comfort zone around us, it creates a lot of things. One, it provides us with a world of experiences, right? And those experiences feed us joy, they feed us consistency, they feed us happiness, right? And if we're in our comfort zone, that's where we're the most confident. We know what's going to happen. We know what's going on around us, and we know how to manage our life because we're used to that routine. Now, that routine is a huge sense of structure in our life, right? It gives us that consistency, that expectation every single day. And that's really important because knowing what's going to happen in our life to a best of our ability to control, right? Everything, there's certain things that happen that we don't know about, but we've built this kind of comfort zone that allows us to be rejuvenated by the experiences that we've created in our life, the consistency that we've experienced in our life. And really what a comfort zone does is it allows us to feel the least amount of risk possible. And that's why it's called a comfort zone. So if you've over the past 20, 30, 40 years developed a home, an identity, a routine with family and friends, right? Experiences that are encapsulated in items in the home, pictures on the wall. If we know that we find respite in our house because that's where we're the most comfortable, these are hard things to just get up, decide we're going to move one day, pack up, and leave. And that's because, our comfort zone has such of an identity to us. So much of what we do, um, in what we've created around our life is around creating this sense of structure and safety. Now, when we decide to move, that means that we have to move out of our comfort zone. One of the great things about a comfort zone is that you created it. As that individual, you are the one that went out and created new friendships, new routines, new experiences, and you created this kind of comfort zone around you. So one of the things I always tell individuals is that you have already done this once before. So you have the opportunity to do it again. And so that means, what are the things that create a consistency or a sense of comfort for you? Is it, family? Is it friends? Is it making sure that your home environment is familiar as it was once before? Is it, finding the things that actually bring you joy? And these are all areas in which you can think about as you transition to your next destination, or your next living environment. These are things that you should look at recreating once again. Like, how do I make these things that once were true for me in this other location true for where I'm going in the future? And that's a huge part of identity. Who are you, right? What's important in your life? Our comfort zone represents our values, it represents our emotions, it represents all the things that we've collected over our life that someone would remember us by. And that's why it's so hard to leave. But again, the power of transitioning is we get to look back in the past. Remember, it's about the past, the present, and the future. And so much of our future can have memories or associated things from the past. So it's never about totally letting go. It's about understanding that I've done this once before and I have the ability to recreate and do that again in the future. So a comfort zone creates a huge opportunity for us to know that we can, again, recreate the life that we've once had in a new, exciting future view. So what do we know about change and transitions and moving from one comfort zone to creating another one? Well, change is hard. Without a doubt, we like consistency. Humans love things to be the same, and we love our routine. So leaving that routine can be chaotic. So I always encourage people that slow is better. Think about how do you manage the transition? If we know that the transition is going to be a big move, and it's one of the third most difficult things that we'll go through in life, maybe the most difficult, what we need to do is we need to plan it. And in order to do that, we need to plan so that we have respite during that transition. If we consolidate that entire life moment into 1 week or 1 day or 1 month, we know that it's going to be hectic. We know that it's going to disrupt us emotionally, and we know that it's going to be hard decisions in there. So I always tell people, give yourself time, space, and grace. So slower is better when you're managing a life transition because it will give you the opportunity to make decisions that you won't look back and regret on because you are having to make them quickly. The other thing is, don't underestimate, right? Don't overcorrect and say, I'm not taking anything with me. I'm just moving forward, I'm looking forward, and everything in the past is the thing in the past, because our emotions are complex. So if we overcorrect, and some of us do, that's just the behaviors that we have. If we overcorrect and say, I'm just moving forward with the future, forget about the past, we will have a feeling of regret. And regret's a very powerful. That's where we start to say if I would have, if I could have, or I should have. And those are all things around shaming the decisions that we've made. And so again, slower is better because it gives us an opportunity to be thoughtful about the decisions, about where am I going? Where am I going to move? What items in my home are coming with me? Right? What important friendships do I want to stay connected with as I move into this new living environment? How often do I want to set up times and visits with my children? And so those things have complex consequences. So time, again, gives us the opportunity to have grace in our decision making. The other thing is change is frightening. So you're likely going to have some level of thinking backwards, and I call that magical thinking, where we think back and we think if we would have done something different, it would have changed the outcome. The likelihood is that you're not going to take away all of the fear about making a wrong decision. There's so many decisions that happen in life transition that are outside of our control that we have to relinquish some level of control and know that we're strong enough to manage what happens outside of our control, that we trust ourselves enough to manage whatever might be out there that's unknown. And so don't lead in fear, lead in confidence about who you are and where you want to go, and make sure that you hold yourself as a priority during the transition, and you're not making decisions out of fear, because change can create a lot of fear, a lot of doubt. This one, I really love this statement and encourage everyone to kind of write this one down because there's a lot of permission in it. Being is easier than becoming. Being is easier than becoming. When we're in a life transition, there is a sense of being pulled forward. And we don't want to leave who we are because that's who we're the most comfortable with in the environment that we're in. We've talked about this in our comfort zone. But you have to create excitement about becoming. Because one of the things that you get to do in this is a level of recreation for yourself. Permission for yourself to look at things differently, to do things differently, and find the excitement and the joy in that. And finding the excitement and the joy about becoming or new experiences allows you to feel like things are happening for you and not to you. And that's a perspective. You're not going to have all the things line up perfectly for you in a move. You're not going to have all the decisions line up perfectly for you in a move. You're not going to experience nothing but joyous emotions during a move. And then the opposite's true too. It's not all doom and gloom, right? But it's not all going to be perfect. So you have to have this perspective and excitement about what's to come and what else is out there, and find joy in that. So when those turbulent situations or decisions or moments happen, they don't uproot you. They don't create this entire overwhelming sense of, I knew I shouldn't have done this. I knew I should have stayed where I was. Everything's going downhill. It's not working. Because again, as we talk about, life is an emotional roller coaster, right? There's the ups and the downs. And there are going to be ups and downs in our transition too, because life is like that. So again, find joy and excitement. And do this by, small successes can be big successes. Small successes are only small successes if you decide they are. Get excited about everything. Put joy into everything, right? Don't focus on the problems, focus on the things that are working and get excited about that. And this will allow you, again, to take something from happening to you to happening for you. Because one thing that we know, transition is inevitable. There's never going to be a point in life in which there isn't a level of change that's going to occur. And we've talked about this. 3 of the most difficult life transitions are death, divorce, and moving. And moving is an inevitable transition. It's also something that allows you to recognize that you're still moving forward. And that power of moving forward means that you're active, means that there's options, means that there's a new adventure around the corner. So instead of having the perspective that this is something that's inevitable, that's only going to happen in a negative way, create excitement around that, because the power of perspective is important. So how do you do that, right? So one is visualize success. Really reinforce the positive. And when I say visualize this, I literally mean think about your new floor plan. Think about your new environment in which you're moving to. What's going to go with you? What's important? Where is it going to fit? Bring excitement and creativity to that. Start to focus on the end result. That end result being something that allows you to start to be able to define what you need and what needs to change. And that being able to define what you need along the way, because you visually know what it's going to look like, allows you to make decisions, right? And decisions is all about adjusting, right? And that adjusting is, whatever is going to occur, you can adjust to it. You can make the next best decision. And so I always encourage people to think about your schedule, right? And knowing that slower is better. Make sure that the transition fits around some normalcy in your life. Don't uproot every behavior or every pattern you have in your life or every schedule that you have in your life for this to happen. Take time, create space so that you can adjust your schedule as needed, and you can adjust it around your transition so that you have some normalcy that's still occurring, some sense of control while you're adjusting to the new normal, right? And the decisions that you have to do around downsizing, around which items going to go with you, which items are going to go with your kids. What does that new apartment or that new condo or that new home look like? And the reasonable pace, again, allows you to move without regret. So time can be on your side. So don't wait till the last minute, pull the Band-Aid off and try to rush everything to happen at once, because that's where you're going to have the most sense of error and the most sense of overwhelmness, negative overwhelmness. The other one is focus on being present. Think about what you can control in the decision-making process and make decisions around that. That allows you to feel that you're in a powerful seat of being the change maker in your life. And again, it's a power of perspective, right? If I'm making the decisions, if I'm engaged in that process of making decisions, I might not love all the decisions that are occurring that I'm having to make, but I'm still in the seat of making them, allows me to have a sense of control. And that allows you to feel that you can, make better decisions with the next step. And every decision you make is a compounding positive impact for you, because again, allows you to be in the driver's seat of that roller coaster, opposed to it just being something that you're experiencing. Big thing along the way, though, is that you have to celebrate. I tell this to everyone, find celebration in what you're doing. Find the moments in which you're proud of yourself or you're excited, and spend time talking about that. Spend time enjoying that and celebrating that. A lot of moves that I've been on, I take time to really acknowledge someone's decision making. The first decision is always the hardest, but every decision after that starts to give you excitement and a sense of control. And that's something to celebrate, right? Because now you're making all the decisions to make this transition happen for you. So celebration is fundamental. It also is restorative, right? There's so many things that are going to happen along the way that, we talked about decision fatigue in the beginning of the presentation, that it can be overwhelming and continue to be overwhelming. If you stop and you break that overwhelming feeling up with celebration, it makes you feel happy and find joy. And again, I tell you, this transition is inevitable for all of us. So we might as well think about the ways in which we can be the decision maker in the seat and enjoy the process and celebrate our wins. Celebration is something that allows us to keep going. It gives us all that momentum instead of fatigue. So what are some tips for a smooth way forward? Number one, don't rush the process, right? Take your time. We've talked about this. Allow time to be on your side as much as possible. Sometimes the move has to be quick because of a health condition or circumstances that you're in, right? In this process, though, try to create as much time for you and the decisions that you need to make as feasible, right? So be as in control of that as possible. Focus on your well-being. When I talk about well-being, I talk about what am I experiencing? What am I feeling? Share that with someone that's important in your life, right? Don't hold on to that emotion by yourself and get sunk into sadness. So share your emotions, celebrate the wins, and share your fatigue. Share your fear, because that can be a great connector to the people that are connected with you in your life, family members or a spouse. Other one is sleep. Try to get as much sleep as possible, because the decisions alone in a life transition can be so fatiguing. You might not have physically done anything yet and feel fatigued, so get your rest. Hydrate, drink your water. I imagine that some of you out there are wondering why I'm talking to you like you're an athlete, but you're going to go through some kind of marathon here where there's a lot of decisions and a lot of things that happen. So just naturally taking care of your body, but being in tune with how you feel emotionally, getting rest, staying hydrated, making sure you eat. Those are all things that you can absolutely control while all this change is happening around you. A lot of times we get wrapped up in the change and we don't take care of ourselves in that. And that only adds to the stress and to the overwhelmed feeling. The other one is get involved in your community. If you're moving to a community, start thinking about networking and the things that you want to get engaged with. Even if you're saying, I don't want to do that, give yourself permission to get engaged with different groups, different activities, and different events. Make yourself step out of that comfort zone, because remember, the comfort zone that you once built, we're recreating that now in the transition. So you're going to have to go experience new things. You're going to have to feel some of that awkwardness in order to create engagement and excitement in the new comfort zone. Make the new look familiar. You know, as you move into your new setting, think about things that you want to take from your past and bring into the setting. Mix it with some new. Have some flair of new furniture or some flair of new pictures, new artwork, but bring forward some of those things that allow you to have that sense of familiarity, that sense of comfort, that sense of your life that you still want to be connected with. So this is a great opportunity to bring some of the, again, the past and the future into the present, so you can have this new exciting setting that you're in. The last one is we talk about connection, and connection with family, connection with friends, plan visits. You know, start thinking about the future engagement and the future things that you want to do and who you want to come see you, and create excitement about that. Ask them, invite them. Even if there's a ton of events and activities that happen in the communities that would be fun for many. The other thing is make sure that family is also invited in this too. Grandkids, there's tons of activities and for the entire family to feel like they're engaged in the process, not just the transition, but the new life that you're creating there too. And they want to see you happy, engaged. They want to be involved. And this is a great way to create that sense of connection and keep it even in the new setting. Now, I say this too, knowing that, you know, some of the things that you had in the past might be new normals, right? And so you're going to have to create some new exciting ways exciting things that you do when family comes to visit. Again, it's all about creating the new and exciting world and the new comfort zone that you're going to be in. So simply put, you know, focus on what you can control, right? And that's decisions around your items, decisions around where you might want to go, what's coming with you. Focus on what you can do, right? And what you can do is take care of yourself in this transition. You can create space and time to give you the opportunity to make the best decisions that you want. Focus on what you have, not just what's leaving you, right? A big thing in here is having to downsize. And so what you have can be overwhelming at times of what you decide to bring with you, but focus on what you're bringing, right? Don't bring shame into the new location that you're going to. Bring excitement and bring what you feel connected to. Be present in the process. Avoidance or being overwhelmed and just stepping back and saying, I can't do this. You really need to focus on being present every single day, right? And create your support group around you that allows you to be present and making the best decisions you can. And also know what you need and don't be ashamed to ask for it. You likely have a network of loving people around you that care about you, that are waiting to be engaged. And in some cases, they might be engaging you in ways that you don't want them to. So it's always good to be naming what you need and inviting them to be part of that solution with you and creating some support network there. Lastly, what do you do? All right, let's talk about this. So focus on the positives as much as possible, right? And this might be a hard exercise, and it might be simply just put like, I don't know, I'm not really excited about this, or I'm very excited about it. You have tons of positive, right? But focus on the positive and allow that to be something that you revisit as much as possible to give you energy, right? Energy is a huge part of moving forward, definitely in life transition. Hold yourself accountable. If you've got deadlines for yourself, hold yourself accountable to those deadlines. But also any resources that you hire or friends or families that are supposed to be supporting you, feel free to hold them accountable too, right? This is only going to happen, this transition is only going to happen in a positive way if the resources around you and the people around you are held accountable, including yourself. So hold accountability. Schedule your time, right? As the transition's occurring, hopefully it's over a long period of time. You've given yourself space and time to make the best decisions and be as prepared as possible. But regardless, schedule time for yourself. You need respite. You need to be able to take care of yourself, do things that are going to fill you back up, because the transition at any stage in life is extremely disruptive. Even if it's perfectly planned with all the best resources, it creates so many decisions, micro decisions, big decisions, changes that require your attention and require your emotion. And so schedule time, respite time for yourself that you can relax and recover to be your best self the next day or the day after, right? When we've talked about having a future vision and purpose, a future vision and purpose is that I'm going to be the happiest I've ever been in this new environment, or I look forward to making great new relationships. But create a statement that allows you to have purpose moving forward, not just a relocation. So name the purpose and create a plan around that. The last thing is make new traditions. We know that when we're leaving our home that used to accommodate so many of our friends and family, and we had traditions there, we had family that used to visit us on holidays, we know that it might look different in the future. So get ahead of those things and start thinking about how you're going to be a part of that. Is it you visiting them? Is it a different set of circumstances in which they come to visit you? Is it, you go out to, there's so many things that you can create in the new that allow you to have an adventure and not just be missing something because it's different. So the power here really in these life transitions is the power of perspective and the power of thinking about how do I make the best decisions for me during a time that can feel like a lot of ups and downs. The last thing I would encourage everyone to really think about is that, you are on this emotional roller coaster. Transitions can be difficult. But if you ever remember the feeling of being on a roller coaster, there's moments of fear, and there's even moments of doubt if I should have got on this ride. But there's also moments where our hands are up, we feel excitement, we feel like that exhilaration, and we feel the most alive because we know we're moving into something unknown and something fun and exciting. So I ask all of you to hold your hands up, put a smile on your face, and allow yourself to be excited about the transition. And focus on all the things that you can control in that, and focus on all the people that might get to be on that roller coaster with you, that are trusted resources, that have your best intentions, and who will be excited with you in this new opportunity. And when you get off that roller coaster, know that you still got those same people around you and the opportunity to be in a different place, but with a lot of sense of familiarity and excitement and joy of where you are now. So with that, I wanted to give it back to Beth for, I think it's a Q&A process now, right, Beth?
It is Q&A. Thanks, Pete. That was a lot of helpful information and things to consider when we're addressing any transition that life presents to us. So yes, we're going to open it up to questions. If you have any questions, drop those into the chat. Courtney, I know that you were monitoring the chat, so I'll turn it over to you to ask questions.
Yeah, we actually had some questions come in via email during the presentation. So Pete, the first question is, I know I need to downsize and that it's time for me to consider moving to a community, but I hesitate because I've built strong friendships in my neighborhood that I'll miss very much. How do I make that final push forward and get excited about that roller coaster ride?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you know, I'd go back to the kind of the comfort zone that we've created. Our social environment has so much to do with how we feel alive and how we feel connected. A lot of times our friendships, and especially where we are today, our friendships can follow us regardless of where we are. It's just a matter of what tool we're using to stay connected with people. So there's always opportunities to connect with people just like this and stay connected with them. The other one is, you know, like when you move to a new community, invite friends to come see you, for you to have a setting, an environment, and fun things for them to do. Likely, their transition is soon or inevitable too. And so oftentimes for them to see you in that space of excitement and all the activities that are going around, they find excitement and joy in that too. And then plus, you're able to take, again, a friend from where you were to a friend where you are now and create that engagement. It's just a different place. So a lot of times it's change of environment, change of behavior, bring that friend along with you, make sure they get, you know, all the joys of your new living environment with them.
Awesome. And someone also just entered the chat. Can they review a recording at a future date? We will be putting this on our goodie bag page later this afternoon, a recording of the webinar. So everyone stay tuned for that. You can watch it at a later date and share it with friends or family or whoever you'd like. We did have another question come in via email. My children are pushing me to move and are making the decisions for me. Although I appreciate the help, I'm afraid it's causing a rift in our relationship. Any advice there is greatly appreciated.
Yeah, this is a real thing. I think a lot of times our family has, and I'm going to use the word good intent. They have strong feelings about how they want to care for us and how they want to take care of us. And there's a lot of role reversal that starts to happen later later in life. I think the biggest thing that we can do oftentimes is talk directly to that family member and tell them how you're feeling and tell them what support really looks like. But know that likely that your family member is doing the best that they can with the information that they have, which is, I want what's best for my mom, or I want to take care and make sure that this person's cared for and that they're in a safe environment, all these things. And so a lot of times too, they can come into our space and just say, you don't need all this stuff. You don't need all this stuff. And they call it stuff because they're trying to make it easier for all of us and give us permission to let go of stuff. But the reality is the stuff that they talk about are possessions and items that we've collected over a lifetime that have a significant emotional attachment to us. So I think sometimes it's just the point of view. So it's always giving them perspective on where you are and talk to them directly, which can be the most scary thing. The tip I would say for that is, don't do it in the moment when they're trying to help you. Do it in a moment where it's the helping's not happening, so they're more in tune to listening and you're calmer to express it. Because if we try to remediate during it happening, that turns into usually where the confrontation and ill feelings start to occur.
Awesome. And last one is, what are some resources to tap into for guidance and advice in planning a move, i.e. checklists, etc.?
There's a lot of information. I know that we'll be sending out some content to everybody that's been a part of this webinar today. We have a lot of resources. Beth, I know you've got resources too, that I think you share.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I think some of the sort of leading industry valued resources, such as Leading Age, which is a national association of senior living communities, their website is just chock full of good resources to tap into about a variety of topics. Also, AARP. As always, they are a good resource on not just moving and transitions, but pretty much anything that you have questions about or need tips or advice on. That's a really good resource as well. There are a lot of those in the markets in your local areas as well. You know, anything senior related. There's areas on aging that are localized. So that's another good resource too.
I know that there's a lot of, senior communities and CCRCs that even visiting their websites and there's a lot of information there too. So there's just so much information that's out there right now that I think is beneficial for everyone to review.
Awesome. Someone also just entered in the chat where they can get an estimate of our using our services for a move. I suggest you give us a call at the number there on your screen. Our services are super customizable, so honestly, it depends what you're looking for. But we can send someone out for a complimentary in-home visit, and they can kind of get you going there. So give us a ring.
Yeah, our services are really catered to kind of take every step of the way, and so very much from a phone call to the end product, we can help you.
Perfect. I don't think I have any more questions coming through at the moment. So thanks a lot, Pete.
Yeah, can I just say one last thing, if that's okay?
Absolutely.
I just want to stress this one, and I'd be remiss as a co-founder and and social worker not to encourage everyone to really talk about their transition. Just put words to it, and don't think about having to be so poetic or so great, graceful in the articulation of it. Name all the things, find the person that you trust most and use them as a sounding board to talk about what you're worried about, what you're excited about, what you're fearful of, all the things, and start to talk about it, because when you start to talk about it, the language starts to help you rationalize some of the things that you feel, because it's not just in us. It becomes something we can kind of name and tame. And so I encourage everyone, if you're thinking about transition, or you're going through a transition, find somewhere to talk about it, because it will likely lead you to make really great decisions that are for you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Pete. I know that based on the questions that we've seen and comments in the chat, it's been very insightful, a lot of good information, a lot of thought-provoking things to consider. As Courtney mentioned, I just want to say to everyone, thanks again for your time today. We're here to answer questions, provide guidance, be a resource. So please take note of our contact information, and you'll receive an email shortly, as Courtney mentioned, with a link to our goodie bag where you can download some tips and some really good information. It will also give you information on access to the link of this presentation to share. So this does conclude our presentation today. As you can see, we have two more fantastic presentations in this series, one on August 2nd, which is at 2 p.m. And that is the second presentation of the series. And the speaker for Making Room for Change will be our SVP of Business Development, Susan Mooney. So please feel free to visit our website to register today, or be on the lookout for email communications that will include the registration link. And as always, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. As I mentioned, we're here to answer, support, guide you through any type of transition. So again, Thank you. Thank you to Pete, and thank you to all of you for your time today.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.